So the Nintendo Switch 2 recently released, and many have been wondering when the next Smash game will come out. Recently, I have been wondering about what is going to happen with the next game in the franchise, so I decided that I would make a whole video about my wants and predictions for the 6th Smash game. Without further ado, let's get started. Let's start with the game's release date. As many of you know, Masahiro Sakurai, the director of all the Smash games, and the dev team have been making a new Kirby Air Riders game, so it's probably safe to assume that Smash 6 probably is not being developed yet, or at least is in very early stages of it. Considering the DLC of Smash 4 released late into 2015, and Smash Ultimate released late into 2018, it would probably be safe to assume that if a similar amount of workload went into 6, it would probably not be released until at least late 2028, 10 years after Ultimate finished development. However, all of this assumes that Sakurai and the devs are working on the game, and Nintendo has not found a new director or studio to develop Smash instead in the meantime. However, it is a possibility that Sakurai and the devs could be working on multiple projects at the same time, so I don't think we can rule out Smash just yet. Plus, I would be very happy if Sakurai came back, even if it would mean the game would come out later, considering how much he pushed Smash to its limit, how much content he was able to put in the game. The series just wouldn't be the same without him. Now the topic that seems to have everyone speculating, the roster. Smash 6 adding more characters is a given, but the topic of cuts seems to be more debated. The effort to put every character back from every game in Ultimate clearly was not easy, so it makes sense that Smash 6 would make cuts. Yes, the devs can reuse assets from Ultimate, but considering how many cuts were in the games before, like Mewtwo and Roy in Brawl, Wolf in Smash 4, and Pichu and Young Link in both, seems to be a possibility. So I'll go through each Smash series and try to figure out the fates for all of the characters in Smash. For Mario, I can see a few changes happening. Most of the main characters like Mario, Luigi, Yoshi, Peach, and Bowser are definitely staying, considering how they're pretty much the essential characters throughout the Mario franchise. I can see Piranha Plant getting the cut considering he feels more like an extra character, especially given how he was just an early purchase bonus for Smash Ultimate. Although the chances is not very high, I think Bowser Jr. has a chance of getting cut considering how he's pretty much 8 characters in one and he is not as essential as the other characters. Rosalina I think is staying, considering how popular Galaxy is and the upcoming Mario movie being about Galaxy really shows it. I do think that Daisy has a chance of being cut as well, but considering she's an Echo who probably requires less of a workload than the regular characters, I think the chance of being cut is not as high. Same goes for most of the other Echoes in the game. As for new characters, it's not as obvious considering there really have not been any new popular Mario characters recently, but I do think Pauline has a chance of being added considering how much Nintendo has pushed her in Odyssey, and now a child version of herself was a character in Donkey Kong Bonanza, so it would make sense for Nintendo to keep the trend going. I also think that we may be getting a Mario enemy added similar to how Piranha Plant was added, considering how much Nintendo has been putting them in the game's rosters like Mario Party and especially Mario Kart World. I'm not sure how they would get a moveset for another normal enemy, but considering how they were able to give Piranha Plant a moveset, I have no doubt that they can do it again. Now on to Zelda. Unless we get a new major 3D Zelda game, I still think they would keep Link as his Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom appearance. As for the other Links, I think Young Link is definitely getting cut. He is too different from the other Links to be considered an Echo and too similar to stand out on his own, and he was cut from both Brawl and Smash 4, so I highly doubt he would be in 6. Toon Link I'm kind of 50-50 on. Yes, he is not really necessary, but I feel like the devs would want to keep another version of Link at the same time. He would probably stay unless there are significant cuts in the next game. For Zelda, I would really want her to have her Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom look, especially considering the Hyrule Warriors game showed us that she can have a lot of moveset potential, so I think it could be a possibility that that version gets added. I have not played Echoes of Wisdom, but by the looks of it, a Zelda like that might have a really fun moveset through being able to summon objects, but probably won't happen considering it's not really necessary and we already have a Zelda. For Ganondorf, I'm really hoping they give him his Tears of the Kingdom look, and I'm pretty confident they will, considering how popular the game is. However, I really want him to have a new moveset based on Tears of the Kingdom with multiple weapons, or at least give him a new one that isn't a moveset that made him the worst character in 3 games in a row. Though, considering it's been 24 years and nothing has changed, I don't think it's happening. As for a new addition, I would really like Impa from the style of Age of Calamity because of how it would be the first new fighter in the franchise since Brawl. She was very fun to play as in that game. I'd say your conclusion is about 50-50, especially considering Age of Calamity would probably be way less relevant by the time Smash 6 comes out. Now on to Donkey Kong. DK is obviously staying and will definitely be with his new design, but I'm not sure about the other two. Also, I have not finished playing Bonanza, so I really am not as informed about the current state of all the characters as everyone else. Yes, Diddy Kong is a staple of the franchise, but considering he was cut in Mario Kart 7 and now World, it doesn't seem like he is considered a priority by Nintendo. So while there's a good chance of him staying, there is a small chance of him not to. However, I do not think King K. Rool is staying. He doesn't feel like a character that is a high priority to Nintendo. He has not made up a lot of appearances since DK64, so I'm not too confident in him. As for new fighters, probably the one who has the biggest chance is Dixie Kong. But if Diddy Kong has a chance of being cut, then I'm not too confident in her. But if the devs are willing to cut many characters, I hope it means that more characters will be introduced as a result, so I'm not ruling anything out. Now for Metroid. Samus is pretty much guaranteed. Dark Samus I can see coming back because of how similar she is to Samus as Neko, so while she's not really necessary, there's not much reason to remove her either. Ridley will probably return given how popular he is and how size doesn't really matter anymore. The character who probably has the most chance of getting cut is Zero Suit Samus, since Samus is already represented, but considering how different and unique she is, I say she's here to stay. So yeah, I don't think Metroid is getting any cuts. Unless a big new character is introduced in Prime 4, I don't see Metroid getting a newcomer. But I haven't been keeping up with the franchise as most people, so who knows. Next is Kirby. I don't see any cuts here considering all 3 of them are staples in the franchise and keep appearing in most of the modern games. As for a newcomer, Bandana Waddle Dee probably isn't most likely. It's pretty well known that Sakurai has a bias against characters and things introduced in Kirby games after he left, but considering how many new characters are in the new Air Ride game, I don't think he really cares anymore. Yes, Bandana Dee mostly exists just to be a simplistic player too, but he may be iconic enough to be let in. As for Star Fox, Fox and Falco are definitely returning as staples of the series. However, I doubt Wolf is coming back considering he was cut from 4, Star Fox is going downhill, and now we haven't got a new game in 9 years, so I don't think the devs would think it would be worth the effort. I don't think there would be any new additions either for the same reason, unless Nintendo randomly decides to pull Peppy or Slippy out of their pocket for some reason. So no, I don't see that much in Star Fox. As for Pokemon, Pikachu, Jigglypuff, and Mewtwo are all definitely coming back considering how popular they are. Pokemon Trainer will probably come back the way he is or get separated if there are issues developing them, though I am betting on the former. I would say Lucario and Greninja are coming back because of how popular they are. Cineroar, on the other hand, I'm not too confident about. He's not that popular as the other Pokemon, and Sun and Moon are 2 generations ago, definitely more when 6 comes out, so I don't think he would come back. The next Pokemon added would probably be from Gen 10, since they would be the newest ones when they come out. Now, time for everyone's favorite Smash characters that are definitely not hated in any part of the fanbase. Fire Emblem. Marth is obviously staying. Ike is definitely staying too, considering how popular and unique he is. Robin definitely because of how he represents Fire Emblem Awakening, the game that pretty much saved the franchise. It is very unique for using magic. The others I'm not so sure about. Joy is pretty 50-50 in my opinion, considering he was cut from Brawl in 4's base game. Same goes for Lucina. May be easy to add, but considering Robin would already be repping Awakening, she does not seem like much of a priority. Corrin probably isn't returning considering they were pretty much an ad for Fates, a game that came out almost a decade ago, isn't very popular within the fanbase. Byleth probably has a higher chance considering Three Houses is way more popular. The next game looks to be related to it in some way, so probably will have the same chance as Roy and Lucina. As for the next edition, you already know. It's going to be the guy from the next game. Sorry Lear, you missed your chance. Now it's time for Earthbound. Considering the franchise hasn't got a new game in almost 20 years, death is pretty much guaranteed considering how much of a classic character he is. However, I don't think Lucas is coming back. He was cut from 4's base game, and his game isn't even officially playable in the West, so it feels like he would be on the chopping block. For Kid Icarus, Pit definitely isn't getting cut, and Dark Pit probably won't either because of how similar he is. Palutena is probably 50-50, given how the franchise hasn't got a new game in over a decade, and even then the series only got like 3 games, so the franchise isn't exactly on Nintendo's priority list. Palutena might not seem very necessary to them. As for Pikmin, Olimar is definitely not leaving, as the franchise is still getting new games. You can see the devs add more of Pikmin's playable characters in the later games as an alt for Olimar in addition to Alf. As for Animal Crossing, Villager is definitely staying, especially considering how much New Horizons sold. I say that Isabelle is a 50-50 cut, however, if she does stay, I can see more Animal Crossing characters get added because of how popular the franchise is nowadays. For Splatoon, I don't see Inkling going anywhere, especially if we keep getting more games. However, I do not see the franchise getting any more fighters unless it's an Echo Fighter. Now it's time for the best Nintendo franchise, Xenoblade. Shulk is 100% staying because he's the OG, and they'd probably add an alt for him for how he looks in Future Redeemed. But I'm not too confident with the Aegis. By the time Smash 6 comes out, Xenoblade 4 would probably be out. So as much as I love Pyra Mythra and Xenoblade 2, I'm afraid they might be up for elimination. I know it probably won't happen, but since the Switch 2 is much more powerful than the first, I really want them to add my boy Rex and make him fight alongside the Aegis, considering he was apparently cut from Ultimate because the Switch couldn't handle it. So there's still a chance of that happening, and if they did add Rex, it would probably be him from Future Redeemed, a version I like significantly less than him in Xenoblade 2, but that's a discussion for another time. We'd probably add the main character of Xenoblade 4 because it would be the newest game at the time, so it looks like Noah won't get his chance to shine either. However, if we somehow get a Xenoblade X2 instead of a Xenoblade 4, I'm really hoping that Elma or Cross/Ryan gets in. I really want to see Overdrive get adapted into the character's moveset that may or may not be super broken, but would probably be really fun. There are many one-off characters from first-party franchises, so I'll talk about them in a lightning round. Captain Falcon, definitely staying since he's a staple of Smash. Unless there's a new game, I don't see any more F-Zero characters being added. Mr. Game & Watch, an important piece of Nintendo history and another Smash classic. He's 100% staying. Rob, staying, same reason as Game & Watch. Ice Climbers, probably 50-50. They only have one game and they may be too difficult to pour over because of obvious reasons. Wii Fit Trainer, probably being cut. The Wii console franchise is long dead, so there probably is not much reason to include them unless it's for nostalgia. Little Mac, good chance of coming back. He hasn't had a game in a while, but he is popular and his Punch-Out is still a classic. Duck Hunt, 50-50. He's a classic character, but they're not a popular character in Smash, so I can see them leave. The Mii's. I know Nintendo has been trying to move away from them, but considering how much they made from selling outfits, I don't see them going anywhere. Worst case scenario, they might be replaced by a different kind of avatar characters, function very similarly to Mii's, though I don't see that happening. ARMS. Unless it's getting a new game, Min Min is definitely leaving because of how forgotten the game is by both Nintendo and their fans. Now it's time for the third parties. Sonic is definitely returning because of how popular he is, and that Nintendo and Sega have a good relationship. I'd say there's a good chance we get another Sonic fighter considering how popular the franchise is. However, we didn't get any new characters from Smash 4 or Ultimate, so I'm not sure if the chance is actually that good. Bayonetta will probably be back for the same reasons, though I don't know much about the franchise to say if there will be any more characters added in the next game. I think it's probably 50-50. Because he was cut from 4, I'm worried that they might be too difficult to add him back because of licensing issues. Mega Man and Ryu will definitely come back considering how popular and influential their series are, but I think Ken won't come back, especially considering how complex he can be and he is still too different from Ryu. Pac-Man would definitely be coming back considering how famous he is, and if Bandai Namco coming back to develop would completely secure it. However, I'm worried that Kazuya might not come back due to how many moves he has, so it may be hard to re-add him into the game. For Final Fantasy, Cloud would probably come back because of how much of a classic Final Fantasy VII is, but I don't think Sephiroth is too high of a priority to add back because Cloud is already representing the game. I can see Simon coming back because of his iconicness, but while he is very similar to Simon, I don't think Richter is that high of a priority, especially since it's been a long time since the last Castlevania game. I think it's safe to say that Joker is coming back to how popular Persona has become in the past decade. As a matter of fact, I think that we might get another fighter as well. Most likely choice would be the protagonist of Persona 6, but if it isn't out before Smash 6, I could probably see Yu being added. However, I don't think Makoto will be added, considering his gameplay revolves around unaliving himself. As hard as it might be to port over, I still think Hero's coming back, especially because of how Dragon Quest inspired so much in RPGs, how he's such a classic character with a one-of-a-kind moveset. Banjo and Steve are probably both coming back if Nintendo keeps up a good relationship with Microsoft. Banjo is too much of a classic character to cut, and while Steve is probably very hard to program, Minecraft is so huge that cutting him would probably be a big mistake. However, I don't see Terry coming back. Many casual players never heard of him and he might be too complex, so I can see him on the chopping block. And no, Sora is not coming back for very obvious reasons. There we have it, my thoughts and predictions for each character's status in Smash 6, so now here are my hopes and predictions for newcomers in Smash. The character that I want and also think has a good chance of being added is Crash Bandicoot. Considering Microsoft owns Activision now, I think the odds of him being added are higher than ever, and honestly he is way too iconic of a character to pass, and would probably be the closest we get to a PlayStation rep. Another character I would really want would be Cuphead. Yes, he probably would end up being an annoying zoner online, but I just think it would be a very fun one with all the possible weapons he could use in battle. Unfortunately, it seems like Cuphead isn't talked about as much nowadays, especially since the DLC released over 3 years ago already. And it doesn't seem like Nintendo wants more to do with him in Smash besides a Mii costume. Another character I want is the main character of Hollow Knight. Haven't finished the game, but it seems like he would have a lot of moveset potential and he would be really fun to play. If he or the main character of Silksong were added, the time would be now because Silksong released recently, though I'm afraid that all the hype would be gone by the time Smash 6 releases. Those are just a few characters I want, but I'm not sure who else Nintendo wants to add, as it feels too early to really tell. Though I do have some guesses though. I never played more than a few minutes of any of the games, but Nintendo would probably add a Monster Hunter rep because of how popular the franchise is nowadays. I would say Rayman would be a possibility, but he hasn't got a new game of his in over a decade, and it looks like he's just stuck there in the ice. I also think a Souls rep would be a possibility, especially since Elden Ring is coming to Switch too, and FromSoft is making a new exclusive to that console. Besides that, I don't know. As for stages, I can see the devs cutting at least 40 stages. Looks like a lot of work went into adding over 100 stages, so I think it's safe to say that it probably won't be replicated. I really hope that this gives them the opportunity to create more stages, as I was kind of disappointed that Ultimate only had 4 new stages in the base game. Stage Builder will probably make a return, and I hope it is in the game on day 1 instead of last time. I know that the game having a lot of cuts would be pretty disappointing. However, I would accept all of them if the game really added something new or changed up the game in an innovative way. Mario Kart World was given the impossible task of following up a game with 9 years of support of new content, so it had to go in a different direction by adding in something new, an open world, whether you like that decision or not. I really hope Smash 6 tried to do something similar by creating another thing to follow up Ultimate in a different way, whether it be a new big game mode, completely changing the formula of the game. So I have played very little Subspace Emissary, but I really hope Smash 6 has something like that. However, I really hope that whatever you get end up having more RPG elements like World of Light, as it was fun progressing through the game with spirits and skill trees and everything, even though the story was not that great. I would also like something like Smash Run on the 3DS being added because of how much fun that was, and online with it would be crazy good. As for the price, I'm really hoping it's $70 instead of $80. It looks like only huge sellers like Mario Kart or Zelda are given higher prices than normal, so I'm not sure if Smash 6 will fall into that category, though I would probably buy it anyways regardless. So those are my predictions / wishes for Smash 6. What do you guys want from Smash 6? Who do you think they're gonna add to the game? The wheelchair guys from DragX Drive? The baby from that Nintendo Today short? Feel free to comment and like and subscribe if you want more content like this. See you next time.